Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gautama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and we come together on Wednesdays in order to do meditation together. This is a great time to encourage, support, and motivate each other in our meditation practice. And at the end of our meditation session, I'll open up to any and all questions that you guys have related to the path to enlightenment and the teachings of the Buddha. We alternate between breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, and today is a guided loving kindness meditation. So if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Pleased that you've joined. You'll have an opportunity to do loving kindness meditation together with us, and then we'll open up to all the questions that you guys have. And if you've been joining us regularly, welcome, and you may even be listening to this on a replay as well. So if you guys would like to join for meditation, you're welcome to do so by getting into a comfortable meditation position, either seated, lying, or standing. These tend to be really helpful for loving kindness meditation. With the seated position, you're usually sitting on the floor or in a chair. You might have a cushion under your rear if you're on the floor. This lessens the angle at your hips, your knees, and your ankles. The hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and then he put that into his lap. So if that's comfortable for you, you can use it. But there are other options as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees, palms up. All of these options are available. Essentially, you'd like your lower body and the hands and arms completely relaxed and comfortable. Not luxurious and not painful, but in the middle where the body's comfortable. This way you can access the mind and actually train the mind through a dedicated, active, purposeful training session to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and arise wholesome qualities. And here with loving kindness meditation, we'll be doing the affirmations in order to eliminate the anger, hatred, ill will, and arise loving kindness. I'll start out with some chanting just to kind of ease us into meditation, and you're welcome to join with those chants if you'd like. Then we'll do a brief breathing mindfulness meditation session where I'll kind of guide you in that for just a short period of time, and there'll be about a 5-minute breathing mindfulness meditation session. Then I'm going to come back in with some guidance on loving kindness meditation, and there'll be these affirmations that you'd like to repeat in the mind on the out breath. So when I mention, may I be peaceful, that's for you to repeat in the mind, may I be peaceful. And you do that on the out breath. And then you gradually take an inhale, and then on the out breath, we'll get to another affirmation of may I be safe. We'll go through 4 affirmations. May I be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. And then we'll expand those rings wider and wider and wider until we get all the way to all beings so that you can cultivate loving kindness for all beings. This meditation isn't for you to send loving kindness to others. This is for you to transform your mind away from anger, hatred, ill will, so that now you can improve the condition of the mind, and there's loving kindness where the mind is permeating with loving kindness, so that now when you're interacting with other beings, your intentions, speech, and actions can emanate from this loving kindness. As long as you have anger, hatred, ill will, and those lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance, even the slightest irritation in there or dislike, then when you're interacting with others, it's going to come through in your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Sometimes we think we're really good at hiding those things, but you're actually not hiding it. It's in the mind and it's coming out through your intention, speech, and action. So when you can transform your mind to be loving and kind through this meditation, and then in daily life, through your intention, speech, and actions, you can practice loving kindness along with all the other factors on the Eightfold Path, investigating right intention, right speech, and right action in detail based on the words of the Buddha. You can understand the natural law of karma and how interacting in the world through loving kindness is going to be beneficial for you and for others. And now you'll experience more love and kindness coming back to you. As long as you're functioning through anger, hatred, ill will, or those lesser versions, then that's what's going to be coming back to you. So you would like to transform your mind in meditation and then go into the world and practice loving kindness through your intention, speech, and actions. So if you'd like to take a meditation position, you can join in the chants, or if you'd like to just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, starting to establish the breath. After the chants, I'll come in with some guidance to help you further in breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅgho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rogavito Anutero Purisa Dhammasati Satatawa Manusanam Bhuto Bhagavati. Okay, you should be breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just establishing the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Your breath isn't going to necessarily match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. So wherever you get to the next inhale, just breathe in gradually through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath or the sensation of air moving into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Just wherever you notice that the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. When you get to your out breath, repeat these affirmations in the mind. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. May we be peaceful. May we be safe. May we be well. May we be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. May my family be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. May my friends and associates be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. May all those who have harmed me be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. May all those who I have harmed be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free of discontentedness and the suffering it causes. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath. Breathing in and out. หังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาพุทธังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเถรวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาตามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ All right, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, what we're going to do for the rest of the time that you guys would like to spend in class is we're going to just open up to all of you guys to any questions that you might have. Whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put your questions into the comment section and our moderator will see that. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. You're welcome to ask any and all questions, whether it's related to meditation or not. Anything that you need help with in terms of the path to enlightenment, you're welcome to ask those questions. So I'll just turn things over to all of you guys.
Thank you, sir. I have a question. I wanted to ask you, is a being born into the world with an ego, or is the ego something they acquire through experience?
It is something that's acquired through experience. It's a conditioning that the mind takes on. So when we're born, we have craving and we have ignorance or unknowing of true reality. We don't yet even have hatred, anger, and ill will yet. And we don't have the ego or conceit. So part of that ignorance and unknowing of true reality, though, we still do have things like personal existence view. We have that as part of birth. So there's most of the fetters we have as part of birth, but the ill will we don't have, and we don't have conceit either. But as we age and as we go through experiences due to our cravings, and we get pleasant feelings, and we start clinging and wanting to hold on to these permanently, this is due to our ignorance. So craving and ignorance is there, and now we start experiencing painful feelings. And then because of our ignorance, we falsely attribute that to other people, and more we form this mental object of ill will. And conceit is there too. It starts to be formed as we age. We don't have it when we're born.
Thank you, sir. I also wanted to ask you in regards to having no ill will towards all living beings. Um, I find it a bit strange to try to eliminate ill will, if I can call it, against people who behave in a really unwise way. You know, say they abuse children or they abuse animals or they commit murder, stuff like that. Like, I find it very counterintuitive, but I'm wondering if you have any advice. Like, is that just my mind craving peace or that all beings are well, or what could it be?
Yeah, because of craving, then anger exists. And because of ignorance, craving exists. So, because of ignorance or unknowing of true reality, the mind craves. And when the mind gets what it wants, it gets those pleasant feelings. When it doesn't get what it wants, it gets those painful feelings, which in some cases anger. So, if your mind is having hatred towards people who are abusive to children or people who murder or rape or other things like this is the mind craving things to be a certain way in the world. So we're not talking about what's right or wrong in this situation or even what's wise or unwise. We're talking about what's causing this particular mind to experience anger. Well, it's because the mind is craving for things to be a certain way. And while it would be wonderful if nobody ever abused children and nobody ever murdered and nobody ever committed sexual assaults and rapes and things like this, it would be wonderful if those things never occurred. But because of the universal truth of impermanence, those things occur. And also because of the craving, anger, and ignorance in other people's minds, they're going to murder, they're going to abuse children, they're going to rape. So that's the primary thing that's causing these murders and rapes and child abuse and mass shootings in certain places and things like this. It's all because of human beings having craving, anger, and ignorance. This is why no matter how many laws are created by a government, you're not going to be able to legislate away mass shootings. It's just not possible to create laws in the human laws in society, and that's going to solve our problems in terms of the misconduct that we see in the world. Because as long as the mind has craving, anger, and ignorance, the mind's going to have moral conduct that is unwise. So what's causing your mind to have anger, hatred, and ill will, or even dislike towards those beings is because of the craving is there, wanting them to be a certain way. So as you reduce your craving and eliminate it, and you're also working to eliminate the anger, hatred, ill will, you can then arise loving kindness, which is a genuine interest in seeing beings be well, and you can have compassion, which is concern for their misfortune. So even though you disagree with a person's intentions, speech, or actions, you can train the mind to not hate them. Even though you might disagree with what they do or what they say or how they function in the world, you can train your mind to not have hate towards them. When you eliminate your cravings and you arise this loving kindness, you can just have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well and understand that those beings who are doing those kinds of things, they're struggling, they're having difficulties because of their misfortune. Their misfortune is that they haven't come in contact with these teachings. They haven't sought these teachings out. They haven't decided that this is what they would like to do because in large majority, they're just unaware that these teachings even exist. So you can have compassion for people with that. Due to that is like, okay, these people are just functioning and struggling through their craving, anger, and ignorance, much like you are, but maybe they're having a more significant craving, anger, and ignorance. So some things that can help you to develop this loving kindness and compassion in addition to the meditation and practicing through your intention, speech, and actions is the Buddha talks about anything wholesome or unwholesome that we see another being experiencing, that we've experienced those same things at some time in the past. So even if you see somebody murdering or raping or abusing children, the Buddha is saying, okay, you've done those same things at some point in the past. Or if you see someone who's rich and famous and has all these, amazing things happening in their life, you've also experienced those same things in the past. So why would we have hatred towards somebody who's doing something that we actually did in the past as well? That we shouldn't judge them or look down on them because of their struggling with craving, anger, and ignorance, because in the unenlightened state, you're struggling with craving, anger, and ignorance too. You just have more fortunate circumstances that you've come across these teachings, and now your practice is in a different place than theirs. But we shouldn't, with ego, look like we're higher and they're lower, but just understand they're struggling. So this is one way, in addition to meditation, that you can cultivate loving kindness and compassion. And then another way is you can understand that all these beings in the world have previously been your mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, or some other relative at some point in the past. So that murderer, they were your brother or sister, your mother, your father, your grandmother, grandfather, some other relative at some point in the past. So this can help you to cultivate loving kindness and compassion for those beings, because you understand that they're struggling with craving, anger, and ignorance. They're unfortunate that they haven't come across these teachings. Yes, they're making unwise decisions and we disagree with those decisions, but just because we disagree with the decision doesn't mean we need to hate them or have ill will towards them. We can look at them as one of our family members and just maintain our loving kindness and compassion for them, because the hate coming up in your mind doesn't do anything to solve the problem for that person or for society. It doesn't solve the problem. It just makes the problem worse, and it's harming your own mind. So by getting rid of your hatred, then you can have this unconditional love where you just love people as they are. And you can love people without agreeing with the choices that they're making.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. And I guess you can't put out fire with fire.
Mm-hmm.
So that does make a lot of sense. Thank you, sir.
Yes, you're welcome.
Christine has a question, so I'll just let her talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Aona. Thank you, Teacher David. I actually would like to ask a follow-up question on this one, and then I have a separate one. So my follow-up question would be, when we were talking about this compassion towards other beings, this one, like, people can do really horrible things and I don't get angry, but then I make a small mistake, I mess up something in the bureaucratic act or something like that, and then I get so angry at myself. There's no balance there. And I wonder, is the craving perfectionism, but only for myself, whereas there's so much understanding for other beings? How can that be? Can the mind be so irrational?
Of course, when there's pollution in the mind has that ignorance or the delusion or the confusion. So the mind's going to lack wisdom about all the different ways to really function in a wise and wholesome way in the world. So the mind is a master at craving. It will crave any number of countless things, and it can crave for your life to be perfect and for you to be absolutely perfect. And when you're not, you'll get angry at yourself. This is part of what the mind does. So you've got to eliminate that craving for perfection and just understand you're a work in progress, just like everybody else. Those types of beings that Iona was talking about and asking questions about, they're imperfect because they're a work in progress. And it's important to always think that way rather than expect perfection today.
Thank you, Teacher David. Yeah, I think this is something that I definitely have to work on. And then my question would be on the 10 fetters, the number 6 and the number 7, the desire for the form and the desire for the formless. I have continued doing the meditation where I imagine my own death. And I realized that when I'm discontent with my life, I'm like, oh my God, I'm just struggling so much with my own mind. Might as well just end this life. But then I realize there's actually no way to end this life, because then it's just going to continue. And then I keep in my mind, when I try to imagine my own death, I keep kind of ping-ponging between these two fetters. Is that what I'm experiencing, or is that something else?
Could be. We'd have to talk some more to uncover more, but you would like to get to the point where you don't have any desire for existence in either the form realms, which are the animal realm and human realm, or any of the formless realms like hell, afflicted spirit, or the heavenly realm. As long as the mind has desire or craving for existence, it's not liberated from the cycle of rebirth. It's going to keep coming back over and over and over and over again, not just craving for form and formless, but any kind of craving whatsoever. So you would need to get to the point where you're completely comfortable with death. You know that death is part of the equation, that it's absolutely going to happen. There's nothing you can do to stop that or change that, because whatever arises, it's going to change and fade away. And the more the mind is clinging and holding on to this material world, the harder it's going to be by the time it gets to death. So in order to get to enlightenment, one would need to eliminate all craving and clinging, and therefore the rest of your life you'll experience peace and joy. So potentially before you ever get to death, you might have had 20, 30, 40 years where you were completely peaceful and joyful because the mind's in the enlightened mental state. And by the time you get to death, there's nothing to let go of because you've already mentally let go of everything. So those two fetters are there because the mind oftentimes it craves existence. And because of that, there's often fear for death. So doing that contemplation of death over multiple sessions, you can get comfortable with death and accept death and get to the point where while you make wise decisions about life and you would like to eat healthy or potentially exercise, and you look both directions before you cross the street, that if something should happen and you die in that moment, at any moment in time, you're completely comfortable with that. There's nothing left that is undone or that your mind is holding on to. So you would like to get to the point where you've cleared out every last craving, desire, attachment, and you can just be perfectly content where you're at any particular moment. And if death would come to you in that moment, you would be completely fine with that. Although you're making wise decisions to continue life, you're completely comfortable with death occurring if that's what it needs to be. And in addition to the contemplation of death or reflecting on death, one of the things you can also do is think about that as you're doing meditation, like breathing mindfulness meditation, is when you're focused on the breath and you're trying to make sure as you notice any thoughts come up that you cut those off and let them go. As you meditate for longer and longer periods of time, you're going to get these longer gaps of peacefulness and joy during your meditation where the mind is just perfectly content, it's still, it's quieted. And in those moments, you can think to yourself that if you were to die in that moment, you would be completely fine with that. Of course, you're not aspiring for that, you're not wanting that, but should it occur, then you would be completely fine with that. So get to the point where your mind is so peaceful in meditation that if death occurred at that time or any other time, you'd be completely fine with that.
Thank you, Teacher David. May I reflect back to you what I understood to make sure that I understood you right?
Sure.
As I understand, is basically these two fetters, they represent having let go of all craving, desire, attachment. So basically, the moment I have let go of all craving, desire, attachment, this is only the moment when I can also let go of the craving, desire, attachment for existence or non-existence.
So the fetters themselves, you're close. Let me help you. The fetters themselves are the individual pollutions that are in the mind, the taints, the fetters that are keeping the mind in the unenlightened state and thus keeping it in the cycle of rebirth. So they represent a description of the pollutions that exist in the mind. Through uprooting those pollutions, now you're purifying the mind, and you would need to purify the mind of those 10 individual fetters. And having done so, one will then experience enlightenment. As these fetters are reduced gradually, slowly but surely, you'll see the peacefulness and joy gradually increasing in the mind, and you'll get longer and longer periods of time of this peace and joy, not only in meditation, but outside of meditation as well. Those two particular fetters are just two specific types of cravings, desires, attachment, desire for form and desire for formless. The main fetter that represents craving, desire, attachment is the fourth fetter, sensual desire. That's the main fetter that deals with craving, desire, attachment, although personal existence view deals with that, doubt, wrong behavior and observances. Others deal with craving, desire, attachment as well. But the central desire, that fourth fetter, is the main one because that's where the mind is longing and yearning through the sense bases for certain pleasurable experiences and pleasant contact. It wants to be comfortable in feeling pleasure all the time. And that's one of the pollutions that are in the mind. But the Buddha specifically talks about the desire for form and desire for formless because these are two specific types of cravings or desires that the mind has that is part of sensual desire, but it's also separate from sensual desire. Because sensual desire is longing and yearning through the sense bases, which are eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself. And you could classify desire for form and desire for formless in the mind itself, that it's longing and yearning through the mind for this thing, but it's also kind of a next thing after this life. It's not really dealing with what's going on in the mind at any point in time. It's something that it's longing and yearning for after this life.
Thank you. Can I reflect back one more time?
Sure, you can do whatever you like. It's y'all's class.
So the fetter number 4 is more about, before I die, I still want to experience this. I want to see that. I want to have this experience or that experience. And the desire for form is more like, after I die, I still want to be reborn. I want to have another human life. Something like that.
Right. Desire for form and desire for formless is desire for existence itself. Desire for existence in one of the 5 realms within the cycle of rebirth, where sensual desire is pleasing the mind through the senses in this life by longing and yearning through the sense bases, wanting to see agreeable things through the eyes, wanting to hear agreeable things through the ears, wanting to smell agreeable odors through the nose, wanting to taste agreeable flavors through the tongue, wanting to have agreeable physical objects touch the body, and wanting to have agreeable thoughts in the mind. As long as the mind is longing and yearning for agreeable contact through these sense bases, it can't permanently get what it wants. So therefore, it's longing and yearning for agreeable contact. So that means there's something that's disagreeable to the mind. And when it experiences that disagreeable contact, it's going to experience painful feelings. And when it gets agreeable contact, it's going to get these pleasant feelings. So as long as sensual desire is in the mind in this life, it's going to be longing and yearning through the sense bases because of its craving, desire, attachment. So when the mind uproots and eliminates craving, desire, attachment, it will no longer be longing and yearning through these sense bases, and it won't see things as agreeable and disagreeable. It's just contact. And because there's no craving there, and it understands impermanence, it's no longer longing and yearning for agreeable, and therefore when it experiences disagreeable, experiencing these painful feelings, and it no longer experiences these pleasant feelings that are conditioned pleasant feelings. But what desire for form and desire for formless is the mind is longing, yearning, craving for existence. It wants to exist in either a form realm or a formless realm, which is outside of sensual desire by itself.
Thank you. I think now I got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good you're dissecting it this way.
Thank you, sir. No more questions.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining. It's wonderful to come together and support and encourage each other in our meditation practice. And next week, we're going to be doing breathing mindfulness meditation together. So you're welcome to join for that and ask any and all questions that you guys like. This Sunday in the group learning program, we're going to be in chapter 14, where I'm going to be teaching how to cultivate the healthy mental states of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So we're going to be talking about what those healthy mental states are, talking about what they remedy, the certain aspects of the mind that they resolve, and then how to actually cultivate them in the mind. These are referred to as the Brahma Viharas, and somebody interested in attaining enlightenment through the teachings of the Buddha would need to understand the Brahma Viharas, all four of them in detail, and understand what they remedy and what they are essentially providing the solutions for, and then how to cultivate them. So that's what I'm going to be teaching you in Sunday's class. So thank you all for joining. We'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Sawadee ka.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.